the whole federal compliance area is just exploding.
Yeah, and I think it will continue to explode, and I think that it'll become more mainstream, and partially because platforms like Paramify, they make the implementation of this easier for people to use. We did a couple federal implementations before we started working with you guys, and then we started using Paramify on one of them, and my CISO's like, we're not ever going back the other way.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Another Paramify Podcast.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
We're joined today by Justin Rende, founder and CEO of Rhymetec, founded in 2015, right?
Yep.
So we'll dive more into Justin's origin story because he went from tech to a brief stint in film and then back into tech. Yeah. But early pioneer as an MSP consultant advisor model, been in, information security for a long time, partnered with a ton of the big players in the space and hundreds of happy clients. So glad to have you on the show, and thanks for coming out.
Thanks for having me, guys. Super excited to be here.
Absolutely.
Super excited for this one because, your stint in tech started really when cloud was just getting going, right?
Yep.
And building that out. So that's kind of when I started. I started a little later than you, but it's been really interesting to see how things have changed,
Sure.
especially next.
Yeah.
So let's talk origin story. So you give us the rundown from the early days. We probably have a lot of questions about your film stint.
Sure, I know everyone likes that part, right? So I guess it's the whole story is where it was tech, film, then tech. Is I moved to New York City after I graduated college, started working in tech for a few years. I was in my early 20s, and I had a bunch of friends in New York that had much cooler jobs than doing software licensing resale. So I wanted something at that point in my time. I wanted something that I thought was cooler and more interesting. So through my network of friends, I ended up getting a job working in film, did that for a few years. Realized after that I don't care so much. As I got older, I cared less about my job being cool and more about a job having a stability and having good financial stability and building something that could grow. So I went back into tech, and then I worked for a consulting firm. This was in 2013, 2014. I worked for a consulting firm for a while. They did a lot of work. They were old school. They did a lot of work with IBM, things like that. And so I remember thinking, this isn't the technology that I use or even really kind of know or understand. And so to your point, working with the cloud, I was like, I want to kind of build a company that is focused on cloud and focused on more modern technology and modern architecture and modern everything, frankly. And so I left that company and I started my own company, Rhymetec. And we started actually just doing penetration testing right off the bat. So we were just doing pen testing for the first couple of years. And then I started to offer our services to smaller companies because I realized that they were kind of being ignored as SaaS-based companies, frankly, because there's a lot of companies out there and a lot of MSPs that were working a lot with companies that had big on-prem architecture, but there wasn't a lot of companies that were focused on SaaS. This was in 2015. And so I kind of made the early decision that I said, well, I know that most of the business isn't here right now, but this is definitely the way technology is trending. And so I think if I can start a business focused primarily on that, I'll get ahead of the curve and hopefully blow up. And so,
Love that.
Yeah. So really it's been a rocket ship since 2015 to where we are today.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's important for the people before we dive fully into, I'm interested to hear your takes on the industry, on cloud security as it's grown since 2015, how all that stuff has changed. I think it's important beforehand that we hear some stories about Robert De Niro.
Yeah, everyone wants to know about film, right? And it's cool. It was cool to work in film. Like I said, I went there probably not for the right reasons. I think a lot of people go into film because they're overly passionate about making films. I didn't have that passion. I wanted to go out and go to cool places and get into places and not have to wait in line and have cool friends. Not the reason to start a whole different change in your career, but I was in my early 20s and didn't know better.
It's time to do that at least.
Yeah, so I worked there for a while, and I actually ended up being their head of. Well, I had two roles, so I ended up splitting it up where I'd spend 6 months out of the year in New York working the Tribeca Film Festival, and I was responsible for getting guests, VIPs, everyone to come to that and stay there, and then making sure they had a good time. So all the celebrities and all of the industry execs, I was responsible for them, and then I would do the same in Doha. Because Doha started a sister festival to the Tribeca Film Festival, which was the Doha Tribeca Film Festival. For a few years, they had that. And so I would spend half the month or half the year there and half the year in New York City. And for both of the festivals, I was responsible for getting VIP guests, celebrities, and everyone to attend, and responsible for, frankly, their agendas, why they were there, which, again, is a total shift from working in tech. But it was cool because, like I was saying earlier, it kind of I met all these really important people, or people that you see on TV and you're like, wow, they have to be amazing because they're on TV, they're big name celebrities. And I realized that they're people just like everyone else. And it really gave me the confidence to actually go and start my own business and work with a lot of people and higher up and powerful people in the tech industry, because I wasn't intimidated by having to meet them.
That's awesome. And you also learned in that you said you were focused on making sure they had a good time.
Yes.
I mean, that is really the first unlock, as an entrepreneur, is understanding, making sure that your customer has a good time.
Understanding them, yeah.
Right, understanding them and realizing at first it's really hard to do that. So you're doing a lot of things that don't scale at the very beginning. You're just like, whatever I can do to make you happy, which is a super important takeaway, right, from that experience, right?
I think that's part of the reason that Rhymetec is successful today too, is the early years is I was flexible in terms of trying to just make my customers happy. And I think going back to what I said earlier, by noticing that no one was really putting services around SaaS businesses at that point in time, I was really good at the kind of like figuring out where there was an availability in the market and trying to fill that gap. And so it's really about understanding the people that you're selling to and understanding what the market has to offer and what you can do to enhance that offering.
Yeah.
I love that.
We for sure, share that. It's like at first you don't have a ton to offer. And so you've got to think outside of the box in terms of like, it's like you mentioned, like the white glove, the white glove aspect to services that needs to be, day one, right? For anybody who's starting a business.
Yeah. I think with services specifically, people going back to like white glove, they want to know that you care. And they want to, I think there's times, and I share this with all the employees at Rhymetec, it's like, you're going to mess up in your job. 100% you will. It's how you recover from that. And I've noticed, like with people and with customers, it's all about just saying, if you make a mistake, tell them, you own up to it, tell them you made a mistake, and then tell them what you're doing to fix that mistake rather than trying to hide it.
Yeah.
I think that's resonates
100%.
so much better with customers.
So stressful, right? To be like living a lie, like with your customers, you're like, oh. And so we try to be very, unfiltered at the very beginning. Yeah. It's not a panacea, what we're offering, right? This is absolutely an imperfect company that is run by imperfect people that are getting better. We're just trying our best to make you happy, right? So we're
showing that vulnerability is great to them, though, because they're also people that are probably running their company or high up in their company that you're talking to, and they can relate to you.
You can
about
be like,
that.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, he's like me. He's not trying to
It's to
cover
your earlier
anything
point, right? It's the same as the celebrities. There's people, and most people are pretty understanding if you're just real with it.
Yeah,
and just own it.
Because they've made mistakes too. They've done the same thing too. So it's all about just owning up to it and being a person.
Yeah,
I love that.
Love that.
So my biggest takeaway from film wasn't any one celebrity or anything. It was just that they're all the same. Not the same, but they're all people, just like everyone else. And so I think the saying is, don't meet your heroes.
Yeah.
It's kind of true.
I actually do have a story about that. So I grew up, played football for the wrong reasons. I wanted to wear the jersey to school on Friday because the girls would see it. And in my mind, they would like me, and didn't work, but that was the goal. I
respect it.
But I was not like a supernaturally gifted football player. But I worked hard. Anyway, loved the movie Rudy, obviously, because he was not a super gifted football player, worked really hard. And he came to speak in Utah. This would have been back in like 2008, maybe 2007. And so I went to see him. I was super excited because I'd watched him like 1,000 times in high school. And he was speaking, and I remember the whole time just thinking, so this is why he didn't get into Notre Dame.
No offense.
No offense. Love him to death.
You went there with really high expectations.
I had really
though.
high expectations.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
So don't meet your heroes.
I never heard that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, so you left film.
Yep.
With newfound confidence. Got
Yeah,
back into
I
tech.
decided. So there was a couple things. I was going back and forth between Doha and New York, and I honestly was kind of sick of that travel, spending 6 months out of the year. I realized that as I got older, I realized I didn't go into film for probably the right reasons. I went into film because I wanted access to things and to be cool. And so I ended up, as I got older into like my 30s, I was like, okay, I need to have like a stable job. I need to start building a real life for myself now. And so I moved back into tech, worked for a consulting firm, like I said, and just saw how they were doing things, saw that they weren't really focused on forward tech, kind of looked at the industry and realized that a lot of MSPs in that space are kind of behind the times. And then I really just decided to go out and start my own thing. I probably shouldn't say this, but I remember thinking, I can do this much better than they are. And then I just started my own thing, and we ended up taking off.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, you had some success in that. You took a bet on yourself, and that's the best bet.
Stressful. It was stressful in the beginning.
Sure,
for sure.
Of course it is. But yeah, just taking a bet on yourself is just something everybody should do. It doesn't mean you have to go start a business, but really, really
trust yourself and take a bet on yourself. Yeah.
Man.
Well, and to grow it completely bootstrapped too.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty unique in today's world.
I wondered, I get, there's VCs and private equity and lots of people every day. I'm getting people emailing me trying to invest in our company just because I think the space is growing so much. And so I don't know if it's a good or bad thing that I haven't taken on investment yet. I could probably grow faster, I think, and if I did, but I still like the fact that Rhymetec is owned by me, and I really I can be flexible about a lot of things in the company. I can be flexible on pricing with our customers. I can be flexible about how we structure agreements. I can be flexible about a lot of things. I also think it's more fun to work for a company that's bootstrapped because we spend money on our employees doing really fun things, and I don't have to go up and justify that to a board or anything like that.
Yeah, 100%. I think for anybody who's starting out, bootstrap as long as you can.
Yeah.
Right? Because the ultimate optionality is revenue from customers.
Yep.
Right? So if you have people that like what you have to offer and people are paying you, I think, that's going to help you attract the investors that you'll want to work with anyway. We were talking about this today, actually. It's funny you mentioned this because it's like, what is the motivation for starting a business? Right? You have, I'm seeing all these reasons for Rhymetec, right? Like, obviously, it was to make a living for yourself, but now you have employees and you want them to have a great life. And that's motivating. And you can talk more about what else motivates you with Rhymetec, but people in that, for me, it was ultimately, I got into building software for enterprises, and I had a really niche SSP prototype that was super embarrassing and was not going to scale. And it was all white glove, at first. And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to need to build software. And so at first we did it as best we could, just building the software. But the GRC problem is really complicated. It's not just like a single feature that you can vibe code. It's so large.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, I was like, okay, let's take what we need. And then you run into things like, you're going to need some sort of DevOps muscle today. And I'm like, Tyler, you know how to do that? And I'm like, and I'm like, hey, Mike, you're the best DevOps person. Mike Cook. I'm like, you're the best DevOps person I've ever met. How's this sound? You can make a sixth of the pay of cash, not including the stock, but he's like, go on, tell me more. Yeah. That's when you're like, okay, you're going to use some equity and share that at some point, but ultimately you're going to need to raise capital, right? Because people need to feed their families and stuff. So it just depends on a services company. Absolutely.
I remember that. So early on too, when I started it, I said we were just doing pen testing, which was great. We would do a pen test, and for like larger businesses too, we would do them. But I would get a large check from that pen test, but I wouldn't know when my next pen test was. So I would constantly be worried about like, okay, how long do I need to make this stretch? What do I need to do with this? And so that's also part of the reason that I started working with SaaS businesses, is I realized that, again, they were being ignored largely back in 2015 from MSPs. And I could offer them my services, but I could also put them, instead of saying doing a $100,000 pen test, I could take that $100,000 pen test and let them spread that out into payments over multiple months, which would give me some forecasting in my revenues and also allow me to kind of have just more stability in the company. And then I realized that when I started doing that outside of just pen testing, that again, largely they were being ignored. They would come to us for all kinds of questions around security because they didn't have any the security industry is just so short-staffed anyway that they didn't have any good security people on staff. And they just didn't know how to do this stuff. So that's where I kind of built out the whole CISO program from that. And
I love that.
And so it really started out, I think, like by me just recognizing that I don't want to live paycheck to paycheck and I don't want to have to know that, and knowing that like I want to build, I'm used to getting a paycheck at least once a month. And so I want to build a company where I know that I'm going to have forecastable revenue month after month after month, which has allowed us, I think, to stay bootstrapped for this long.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
I love it.
And I love the focus on the employee experience too, because we've chatted about this a few times, but it is one of those things. Like we talk a lot about wanting to change the lives of our employees with Paramify. And obviously part of that is, you know, when you work at a hyper growth startup, there's a halo effect and you can, you know, get exposed to lots of things that you wouldn't normally get. We call it working in dog years. We want everybody to have like a life-changing financial outcome. Everybody's an owner at Paramify. We want them all to have an outcome there. But really the biggest life-changing thing is like, if you don't hate your job every day,
Yes.
you're a better person. Like I'm a better dad, better husband, better friend. Like if you legitimately enjoy what you're doing and are like with good people in a situation where you have fun during the day, you get to tackle big problems, you get to work on meaningful things. Like that's huge.
Do you think you're better at poker?
No,
Because of
I
that?
don't play hardly at all anymore. That has taken a hit.
Bummer. So it's not good for everything to like your
For
job.
anything. Yeah.
Sometimes. You're absolutely right, though. I agree with you. I think like one of the things, we're a relatively small company, we're 40 some employees. But one of the things that I think, like, since we don't have a huge name or not everyone knows about us, one of the things to attract people is like the quality of life you're going to have when you work at Rhymetec. And again, we're still small enough that I can kind of do cool things with our employees, take them on big trips. We do a lot of outings. We're a remote company. I also spend a lot of time getting the teams together in person. I was saying this earlier that I made some of my closest friends when I was in a job in an office. And I feel sometimes that I'm robbing my employees of that. So I want to make sure that I spend time and spend money to get them together. I also think that with a remote company, since we're all remote, you're used to just seeing a face on a screen. And so when you get someone together and you take them to dinner and you hang out with them and you realize they're a person just like you, it breaks down a lot of the communication problems you had before, because you actually get to know them and you just know what they like and you know how they are. And so you're going to be a better communicator with them when you go back to being remote.
I love that.
So sick.
I still miss having an office,
It's
though.
a great way to do it. Yeah.
I love
We do.
our office
We do love it.
so much. It's so fun.
You have a great office. This is a great
It's so
space.
great. Yeah, we're super fortunate. And I mean, I just love mornings here in Paramify, the sun coming up. I mean, I think, you know, things are going a lot better than they used to be going. And so I can stop to enjoy the outdoors a little bit more. But yeah, before it was just down in a basement, you know, just, oh, this is not going to work. Yeah, it's going to work. It'll work. It'll work.
Beats the views are much better here, I'm sure.
Yeah, or better be.
Much better.
So let's talk about, you got into this really early. You've kind of seen you've seen the whole evolution of like SOC 2 becoming like being built in platforms and
Becoming
now,
automated and
yeah, kind of the whole change and what that looks like and costs and availability and all that. Like what's your hot take on the industry and kind of what's happened over the last, 10 years?
I think there's pros and cons. I think again, SOC 2 used to be, or even just like ISO or some of these more standard frameworks, they used to be really hard to do. They used to be really costly and expensive, and they used to cost a lot of customers a lot of money to do that, and a lot of resources and a lot of time. And so I think a lot of these things that automate a lot of this now have really improved that. They've brought down the cost, they've brought down the time and the effort that takes to go into doing it. And again, now that we have, like, most companies are moving to the cloud, it's a lot easier to automate a lot of these pieces and API into different softwares to make it all work. So I think it definitely is the future, and everything's trending that way. I don't think it's going to change. Right. I question sometimes if the quality of what you're getting with SOC 2 and ISO specifically has gone down, because with that automation, has it actually affected the potential for risk that you have in your company, because you're not paying as close attention to it. So I think there are really two sides to that coin. And I think regardless of the downside of the risk, none of this automation stuff is going to change. There's just, the industry's too bought into it. There's too much money involved in it now. So it's just going down that path. And so I think we just need to kind of all get aligned with that and then figure out ways that we can improve the risk through automation.
I agree. I think it's good that more people, it's more accessible. I think all that's like goodness. There are those who underestimate the rigor that's needed to actually get, like to your point, right? Like, am I actually addressing risk here, or am I checking a box? And so checking a box is better than, sometimes it's best. Maybe it is. Sometimes it is. It's when you think that so for us, for example, when we're setting up MFA, it's not just one component. We're not just checking AWS, hey, is MFA turned on? Like there's just like one little call. It's really involved. We're talking to Okta, we're talking to AWS SSO services, we're talking to our Google directory, like we have scripts for Google directory, and it's complicated. There's 5 different components. So to have this control that says like MFA is enabled, right?
Because I press the button in AWS.
Yeah, and it's like, well, is it, just check, is it implemented for AWS? And it's more than that, right? So GRC teams, the ones that are really good, the GRC engineering teams, man, it's pretty involved, right? If you go to some of the enterprises, it's not something that you can just turn on typically. And that's just one example, right? There is so much complexity. You know, it's nice. APIs, it's great that there are those functionalities there, but I knew starting Paramify that was going to be something that was underappreciated, like the complexity of implementation.
Yeah, I think that was so kind of going back to earlier on when I was working with other GRC platforms. I think these GRC platforms that I was working with were growing really fast too, and so they'd hire salespeople. And those salespeople wouldn't have the knowledge of really what exactly the ins and outs of all of that.
Yeah.
And so they would always overpromise, or they would do what you think, which is just make it simplified. Like, oh, you just have to turn this one button on and you're good. And that's what the customer would walk away thinking that that's what they would have. And then they would go back to that platform after a couple of weeks and be like, hey, you said this was easy and it wasn't really easy. And that's when they would introduce us or bring us into that play. They'd be like, well, since you are having problems, you should come speak to Rhymetec.
Talk more about that. Talk more about how when you're talking to customers, because you've been doing vCISO services for a decade, like over a decade now, right? Talk more about that, like helping a client understand that this isn't really an easy button, you know, to talk about that.
I think there's a couple pieces. I think you have to shift their mindset from, okay, we're not just a compliance. You're not just becoming compliant. That is not what the goal should be. Your goal should be to build a robust, scalable, secure InfoSec program that leverages compliance milestones within it. So I think the problem is honestly is, and again, since it's more accessible now and there's more money in this space, people have basically tried to say how simple it is to sell their products or services, when in reality, it's not. It is easier than it was 15 years ago, but it's not just plug and play and you're good to go. There's still a lot of complexities, but that's where if you don't have a lot of security people within your organization, that's where a company like Rhymetec or any one of us now that exist in this space will come in and kind of do that, help you do that. But I think the reason that it is like that now is simply because the people that exist in this space, there's a lot more people in this space now, don't actually understand the complexities of security. They just understand what their product does, and they don't understand how it works on the other side, how their product works with these infrastructure.
I see that all the time. I mean, being a consumer of SaaS services, I've experienced that, you know, when I need this thing and you get sold something that's actually not
what you think it's, not what you think it's going to be.
We just had that happen to us.
Yeah.
Canceling a subscription right now.
Yeah.
It's so easy too. I tell our sales team, I'm like, you should, like I was saying this earlier too, we have lots of partners in this space and we work with, but like, if you so everyone wants you to kind of just do what's right by them and not necessarily what's right by you or what's right by your customers. And if you just always have in your mind, we are always going to do what's right by our customer. We're not going to mislead them. We're going to tell them exactly what our services are. We're going to tell them what the products are that we're doing. If you don't mislead them, that'll lead to happy customers rather than walking away with them thinking, oh, hey, this isn't doing what I thought it was going to do.
I love that. And that's something we talk about a lot here too, because when you look at the change in the industry, a lot of the things like, you know, if you're getting a platform to help collect your evidence for SOC 2 or for ISO. It's kind of become commoditized. There's a lot of platforms that do it now. It's hard to differentiate between them. So really what the differentiator is like when you have a team that really, really cares and shows up and that has like deep expertise on how to do it right. And we encourage people all the time, like go spend to get the right partner.
Yes.
Because there are cheaper ways to do it and that's fine. But ultimately the goal here is to be successful, right? With whether it's SOC 2 or ISO or FedRAMP or whatever, what you don't want to do is get 8 months down the road and be like, okay, we either have to stop or start over. But when you've got people on your side that care a lot, and that's kind of baked into your guys' DNA, I know early on with your first few customers, a lot of what you were doing was like biking door to door, dropping gifts off, right?
Everyone loves this story. Yeah, it was kind of cool, actually. I sometimes miss those days. So I live in New York City, and this is when I first started Rhymetec. I didn't have any clients, and I was trying to think about original ways to kind of get clients, right? And so I would cold call, I would write people LinkedIn messages, I would email them, and some of that would come through, but the majority of it wouldn't. And so I would think, okay, what am I going to do to stand out and really actually like get this person to respond to me? So kind of going back to when I worked in film, I remember you used to get things that, probably not anymore, but you used to get bike messengers in New York who would deliver something to you and it would come from somewhere else in New York. And typically if you got that, you were like, oh, this must be nice because someone spent a bunch of money just to send it 5 blocks down the street to me. So like, what is this? And so I started to, I would reach out to a bunch of customers and then I would go and I would bike around to all of their offices and then I would deliver them a handwritten note after I'd emailed them and like a Google Home or some sort of like gift or something like that. And these were in big, tall skyscrapers, typically these businesses. And so I would actually just go into their mailroom so they never got to see me and know that I wasn't a bike messenger. And then the mailroom would deliver that to them. And I would buy like really nice stock paper and just make it look like something you want to open, right? And that garnered quite a bit of results. I'm really impressed with like how that actually, I got so many deals from that. And I still love riding my bike, but I used to just love riding my bike everywhere. And I would just ride my bike around all day, delivering these notes in Google Homes to people's offices. It was like some of the happiest parts of like early days.
I love that. Have you read, there's this book that it was called Alchemy. It's not The Alchemist, but it's Alchemy. And it talks about how, humans aren't necessarily logical, we're psychological, right? So it's the magic, right? Like we love magical experiences, and there's a similar, I don't know if you've read it, but there was a charity, I think it talks about in the book, I might be butchering it, my memory, whatever, but there's a charity that wants to raise more money. I think it's in the UK, and they're like, how do we do this? Like, they're like, how about we spend a lot of money on it? We just do a FedEx envelope, right? So if it's a FedEx, it's going to have a higher open rate. I'm like, yeah, but it's going to be a lot more expensive. We're going to have to do it. But what happened? Donations skyrocketed because you had to open that envelope. It was because it signals that, yes, we really care, right? And they did really care. And so it's actually the right mechanism to pick. So to do that, I think.
And it makes you stand out, right? You're different than everyone else. So they're going to remember that. They're not remembering now that I'm a CEO, I get a million LinkedIn messages from people soliciting me or emails soliciting me, and I don't remember them because I get so many. So what are they going to do to stand out
But it's not feigned. It's not like you're trying to trick people. No. You actually do care. It's actually showing what you truly feel about that person.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
I love that story. Man, it's so cool.
Yeah. That's great.
That is a great story. I kind of miss those days. I wish I could just ride my bike around New York City and get stuff out now.
Maybe you could, run it back every now and again. Say, today we're going to go.
We're just going to bike around.
We're going to bike around today. That'd be a fun thing, right? No, just kidding.
I think kind of going back to like, and when you talk about like people opening their FedEx envelope or something, I always compare this to you buy a new iPhone, and I'll go and I'll get the iPhone. The most exciting part of the iPhone is unboxing it, and then you open it and you're like, oh, it's the exact same as my old iPhone. It's exactly, and it does the same things. It's a little faster, but it doesn't have as many scratches. So it's all about that like excitement and anticipation of knowing what's in something or knowing that. And so if you can make the packaging, I guess, for that really cool, it really gets people excited to see what's inside and even respond to you.
Make it magic, right? There's a magical experience. How do they get people to drink Red Bull? Right? They jump out of planes, right? Yeah. And so people trick themselves into saying that I like this.
Listen, Listen,
Just kidding.
Syrupy tasting
the
stuff.
Red Bull is delicious.
You guys
know, even though, which book is it? Talks about the founding story.
so you guys got to just get Alchemy, the foreword, the very beginning.
Yeah.
Alchemy is freaking hilarious because it talks about the story of Red Bull and how you cannot discount magic. And so I think what's so cool about this conversation, guys, is people who care, people who really genuinely want to make the world a better place and have something to offer. You know, you got a chance, right? Because people, if people are going into, you can have whatever objective you want starting a company. It could be like, hey, you know, this industry is growing crazy. We're going to make a ton of money. Let's go make a ton of money. Let's get the bros. Let's get everyone together and let's start a SaaS, right? Let's go make a ton of money. You know, that's fine. And that can happen. And it has happened. But founders, right? People who find something like, hey, this is really working, you know, you have a chance to give someone a world-class experience, and it just has to be your level of care, right?
And why not? Why not give them that?
Right? Why not?
If you can, why not give them that? That'll change your life. It'll change their life. It's so much better to do that and just care across the board with people, partners, and everyone, because they'll recognize that versus someone who doesn't.
Totally. Man, I feel good.
This is definitely our best feel-good podcast for sure.
Yeah.
I love that. So one question I have, you guys are in, so business, like not necessarily pivots, but like business changes, right? The industry's changed a lot. And you guys as a business now are moving a lot into federal compliance in addition to what you do on the commercial side. How's that change been? That's a big jump, obviously.
Yeah, it's a lot more complex on the federal side, a lot more controls and a lot more details that you need to pay attention to versus some of the things that you're doing into the private space. But I think we consciously made a decision to focus more on federal stuff because I think like when the space that I kind of started and now still in has become very saturated, and a lot of companies out there are just kind of promising essentially free services in order to get leads from specific other software vendors. And that dilutes the service level. When you get something for free, you have to be like, why am I getting this for free? And so it's kind of turned into, when it comes to SOC and ISO and people that are primarily focused on that, it's turned a lot towards a race towards the bottom. And it's just, I don't want to play in that. It seems dirty to me, and I don't want to play that way. I think there is a value to becoming compliant and becoming compliant the right way with SOC and ISO. And I'd rather do it the right way and charge the customer a fair amount of money for that than do it for free and skimp on the details of it. So that's kind of the area that's at least where that space kind of sits in now, or it's what it's kind of revolving in. The federal side, no, not so much. So I think there's still a lot more assistance that's needed there. I think some of the lower, I don't want to say bad things about my competitors, but some of the lower level MSPs, they're not sophisticated enough to kind of grasp onto federal stuff yet. And so they're still going to just kind of continue to work in that space, and I'm going to continue to grow into the federal space. And then I think when this space changes, then we'll look at something else. But I think it's all about kind of maximizing the market you're in and then being able to pivot if you need to.
And people also underestimate the rigor that's needed. Because again, what is the outcome that we're looking for with the SOC 2? Well, most of the time now, I know why we had to do it at Adobe. Why? It was a sticker, right? I needed the sticker so I can do this $32 million deal with Disney, right?
They don't think of it as security anymore. They think of it as a sales enabler.
They needed a sticker. It was a sales enablement. Yes, it's sales. You have to be FedRAMP, and so that's one of the things. But when it comes to the agency mission, they're like, yeah, that's fine. Like, we just need the tool to do our mission. We're not, we just need the tool to do our mission. And here's the requirements, and you really can't skimp them. Yeah. You have to do them.
FedRAMP is complex. And so I think, again, you can't really be like, hey, I'm going to do this for free, or I'm going to do this. Like, it's something that takes a skilled employee, someone that knows what they're doing. And it's going to take a little bit of time. And so, yeah, I just think I think that like working in the federal space is it's a different beast than working in the SOC 2 space. And I agree, yes, you do need to be FedRAMP compliant. It's also a sales enabler, but it's not, I don't think in the federal space, it's the main reason all the time. I think they actually care more about security and data privacy.
And it is a very, it's a super comprehensive, great security program. Like it's really great.
It is. Yeah.
And that's why it's hard too. Like to your point, I've told this story on the podcast before, but the tech company I was at before, we would have deals that would come and say, you guys have to be SOC 2. You have to have your SOC 2 in order for us to buy from you. And so I'd go to the CFO and I'd be like, hey, we need to go get our SOC 2. And he'd be like, it's too hard and it's too expensive. Just don't sell to those clients.
Yeah.
And this was in 2019.
Yeah.
Fast forward 6 years, it's, talking 4 digits.
Yeah.
You could have got that sticker.
I don't think many CEOs are saying, hey, don't sell to those clients anymore. I think this Rex. I don't know. I hope it does.
I think what happens, it's similar. Like when you go through the TPRM, someone will say, okay, yeah, do you guys have your SOC 2? Yeah, of course. Like for us, like, well, we have, FedRAMP High Ready, and we're FedRAMP 20X or 20X mod, all those things that we're gonna have, right? So, I mean, it doesn't really matter, but ultimately, once you get through that hump, they're going to ask you for evidences and questionnaires, and trust centers are going to be more and more important, but not trust centers as they exist. At the very beginning of, here we are in 2026, the trust centers that we see won't
be what they are in a year.
Yeah, exactly. Thing to improve, for sure.
Yeah, so like on that, I think maybe SOC 2 changes, maybe ISO changes, right? I don't know, or maybe it stays the same. But overall, like risk management, like I think the complexity is going to continue to go up. The tools will get better and better, right?
The idea of the threats goes up too. That's never going to stop.
I think with automation and AI, there's going to be a lot more threats that people don't even know about now. And so that's going to require more robust frameworks and security profiles to withstand those.
Yeah. I don't mean to like shift gears too much, but when you started, you targeting SaaS customers, and obviously it was pen testing, and then you started doing, the GRC stuff as well, GRC implementations with all the platforms coming out. Has the way that you find customers changed at all? And well, you're not going door to door. And has your buyer changed at all? Is it super similar to what it was?
I think our buyer has gone a little bit more up market than it was when we first started. We were really focused on kind of startups at that space. Now we have a lot of what I would consider like mid-market accounts, which are like 500 plus to like 1,000. So I think that's shifted, but I think that's I don't know that that's the market shifted us. I think that we've kind of consciously chose to go up market with that. Yeah. So that's one major shift I've seen.
What are they concerned about versus, back in the day?
Risk. I would say the smaller companies don't even know what they're concerned about. They just know that they need to be compliant in order to sell.
Yeah.
That's a great way to say it.
Yeah. So you're working with a sales manager, or they're a small startup or a COO or something that doesn't have a background in security. They just know that if they want to bring their product to market, they have to hit this compliance milestone. So that's why they're like, do this. As you go up market and you get into companies that have a little bit more sophisticated security people, or just have security staff altogether, you realize that they actually understand the need to like mitigate risk. And so you have to have more robust services and more, you have to spend more time with those customers because they actually care versus the customers that don't.
That's really interesting. Because when you're starting a business, your only concern is, can I get a customer? And then can I get one more customer? Once you have a bunch of customers and you have all their data, is when you start to think about like, I probably got to protect all this stuff.
I have a lot of information in my systems. Yeah, I should probably figure out a way to make this safe.
All those clauses on all of those agreements and all of those red lines. I'm like, dude, one day those are going to come home to roost. Yeah. Right.
It's unfortunate, but I don't see a lot of startups that actually care about security. They care about going to market. I think they think, I need to go to market. I need to impress my investors. I need to sell. And then when I get a little bit of money in the bank, or I have a good ARR, then I'll go back and revisit security. But that is a much more expensive endeavor than it is to just build it from the ground up. So
Totally. Now, and we talked about, in the federal space, it's definitely more complex. But definitely in the federal space, there's definitely in the past, especially dealing with FedRAMP in the past and CMMC, lots of inefficiency.
Yes,
right?
For sure.
What do you think are the things that you're seeing that are improving there? Right.
I mean, like FedRAMP 20X is, I think, really going to make things a lot more efficient and quick and fast. So I think that like these frameworks are starting to catch up. But again, I still think that's what's going to drive efficiency is being required, because I think a lot of times the companies don't if you're working with an internal security team that's maintaining that, and they have to put a lot of human resources into actually maintaining that security posture, those people aren't going to want to be like, hey, you can automate my job away and take me out of this. So they continue to do what they're doing, and then the smaller companies just don't know what they need to do yet.
Totally. Yeah. I'd agree. The pace of innovation on the 20x side is so exciting.
It's pretty crazy.
It's so dope.
I don't know. I don't know that it's like, I feel weird thinking like security compliance frameworks are cool, but it's the coolest one that's came out lately. It's the most modern and like actually efficient.
Security, because you wanted cool friends and to get in cool places.
Yeah.
The reason I think it is that way though, is because, okay, the RMF has been around for a long time, the risk management framework. FedRAMP was the actual implementation of RMF, right? And it was really comprehensive and it was really good and it was not perfect. But once you understood the dark arts of FedRAMP, you could understand, okay, this is the RMF embodied, right? Like this is how I'm going to implement the RMF. And that was really, really hard. And so what we're trying to do is taking the good things, the good aspects that FedRAMP does, like the comprehensiveness in terms of going everywhere down from the physical security layer all the way down to the code layer and, you know, taking and everything in between, how comprehensive that is. And let's improve how we're assessing all those different areas. And so, Pete and the whole entire FedRAMP team and, you know, and it goes higher up than that, right? It goes to OMB. You know, they're looking at how can we make this a lot easier for people to do. And so I have not seen this pace of innovation from the government ever, right? I mean, I
was going to say I haven't either.
It's so cool to be on there.
Transparency, the way they're building in public. Everything's open for comment. Very active on LinkedIn, active in GitHubs, doing tons of podcasts and webinars, and you know, speaking like they're very public facing of what they're building too, which has been cool.
Yeah, and I think it is going to succeed because you know, government agencies do need access to the better technology. We're going to get left behind, right? If we don't, and we're going to succeed here, right? So we're going to look back at this time in 2026. And think, man, that was crazy what was happening then, because the pace is insane for us trying to keep up on our product roadmap. Blew up basically when this came out in March, and we were scared for a couple hours, but we're like, hey, this blew up for everybody. This is a good opportunity, and I couldn't be more grateful that it did blow up.
Well, and the fact that it's happening alongside CMMC, which like, you know, FedRAMP. There's, you know, 450, it's over between 450 and 500 FedRAMP companies now. CMMC, and if we 20x that, that's 10,000, which is the goal of 20x. CMMC expects 300,000 small businesses, and it's happening right alongside it. It's a huge, just the whole federal compliance area is just exploding.
Yeah, and I think it will continue to explode, and I think that it'll become more mainstream, and partially because platforms like Paramify, they make the implementation of this easier for people to use. We did a couple federal implementations before we started working with you guys. And then we started using Paramify on one of them, and my CISO's like, we're not ever going back the other way.
Cool.
Love that. Love to hear it.
Yeah, it was a dark place. Building this thing, man.
It is funny every now and then Kenny has to dive back into something FedRAMP, you know, because he knows it as well as anybody. And you can see on his face when he walks to the office, it's like, I know I'm getting into FedRAMP today.
Yeah.
Back to the dark.
Everyone should stay away from Kenny today.
That's when we're talking about like the legacy pieces, right? When we're still, you know, I don't think DoD is going to stay where it's at. We just don't have the tools yet to harness like a 20x, you know, assessment, right? And they'll get those, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to build, right? Is to build those tools. But once we have those, I do think that there will be adoption, right, on the DoD space as well.
I mean, I think so, but I think someone like the DoD, they have a lot of, again, their architecture. While 20x isn't made for the cloud, it is kind of still made for the cloud.
Yeah.
And so like, how are these companies, or like the DoD, that's going to have a lot of IBM mainframes, that hold data within their office building somewhere.
Sure.
How is that going to factor into this? And I think so. I think that's like some of the more legacy or bigger areas in the industry are going to take a longer time to switch.
That's true. And when we pitched, right, our 20x thing, right? I remember we had the meme of John Travolta, right? For like the risk for physical security, like, it's just, it's not a thing that there's no KSIs there, right? Because it's like, well, you're in the cloud if you're doing this. And so, yeah, that will have to be handled.
And I always think, when I was working with when I did a pen test early on, I was working with a big law firm in New York City, and they had a lot of on-prem stuff. And I was talking to like their director of technology or someone, I forget what his title was. And he was like, we would switch to the cloud, but obviously with legal stuff, there's regulatory reasons. But he's like, also, I have 600 lawyers that work here, and a lot of them have been here for 30 years, and trying to get them to change their habits about how they do things by migrating everything into the cloud is going to take years to do.
Yeah.
So I think if the public sector is still taking a long time for these migrations, I think the government's going to take even longer. Although to your point, they are working really fast right now.
Room quick.
Yeah. Looks like Mike has another Zoom call starting.
Realize I'm the owner on a Zoom call, but everyone's waiting for me. I started it. They're fine. No, they're fine now. I just glanced over and I was like, I am getting blown up. Right.
So sorry. Yeah. Well, yeah. Justin, tell our listeners where they can learn more about Rhymetec and
and where they find you.
Where to find you.
Find us at rhymetec.com. It's RHYMETEC. We're on LinkedIn. We have socials. We even have a TikTok account now, apparently. So we have everything. So reach out to us anywhere, and we'd love to chat with you guys.
Great.
I love it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.